Hello and welcome. My name is Elizabeth Foster. I'm the president of NAWBO New York City. And today we have a wonderful fireside chat with Dr. Safiyah Satterwhite. And I'm just going to read a little bit about her because I'm so excited about today. She's an amazing woman and has got we've got some great things to share with you and lovely stories. So Dr. Safiyah holds an Ivy League doctorate with a concentration in entrepreneurial leadership. And she's on a mission to help more women entrepreneurs experience joyful success as they make their mark. And we all do need to make our mark in the world. So this is very apt for right now. So Dr. Satterwhite stumbled into social entrepreneurship as a young 25-year-old CEO and the founder of a multi-million-dollar school, and has been coaching leaders and million and billion-dollar agencies since, which is really exciting. She believes that women particularly experience significant challenges in the startup world and need that dedicated support. And that's very true, because at the beginning, we just need all the help we can get. And her company is called She Heals the World, which I'm excited to find out more about. And so I'm sure it's going to be very interesting because, again, the world right now certainly needs a lot of healing. So I think our conversation is going to be great. Yes. So welcome, Dr. Safiyah. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Liz. I am so excited to talk about charting a path forward. This is a topic that I have some personal and professional experience in. And so I am so excited to jump in.
Great. So maybe I can just ask a few questions and we can kind of just get this chat going. So tell us about the work that you actually do with She Heals the World.
Yes, I am so happy to talk about that. So She Heals the World is a global training and leadership development firm, and we elevate the idea that success can and should be joyful. And so we train coaches all around the world to help high-achieving women create a life that feels as good as it looks. And when I talk about the work that we do at She Heals the World, I like to reflect on one of my signature clients by the name of Michelle, and this is a pseudo name because we protect the identity of all of the women who work with us. But Michelle is a recent client of ours, and she is a high-achieving attorney, a high-powered attorney. And Michelle did everything right on her rise to the top. She went to a top school. She moved up the ranks very quickly. She did everything the way that she was supposed to, became a successful lawyer, has a beautiful family, perfect husband, perfect car, perfect bank account. Everything looks perfect from the outside looking in with Michelle. But Michelle's only problem is that Michelle absolutely hates her life. And when she looks around at her law firm to see if there are other people who are living the life that she wants, she cannot find a single person who is embodying the lifestyle that she wants to have. And so Michelle decided to make some changes in her life, and we decided to work together where I would support her in rediscovering her passion and help her recreate a life that she is excited about. And we did that using the power of coaching. But the reason why I'm so excited to work with high-achieving women like Michelle is because Michelle's story was my story. You know, I was one of those women who had gotten to the top of my industry by the age of 30. I had a multi-million-dollar school under my belt, as you said, and 4 degrees, 2 of them Ivy League, and a successful career in New York. And I was looking around feeling like I should feel amazing. I should feel like I'm on top of the world right now, but I feel depleted. I feel unfulfilled. I feel empty. I feel stuck. And so one day when I got absolutely fed up with mediocrity and I realized I didn't want to wait until I was 75 to live my life, I left my achievements on the table, packed my bags with my husband, and traveled the world in order to, in essence, kind of find myself. And on that journey, and I'm sure, we can talk more about this, but on that journey, She Heals the World was founded. And that was 7 years ago. And so thankfully, that move was a good move. But when I look back, I realized that I could have missed out on one of the best decisions of my life to find my life's work today if I didn't have the courage to dream and, more importantly, to leap. So that's just a little bit about the company and what I do today.
Oh, that's great. Sorry, I just realized I had myself on mute.
Oh.
So what really inspired you to do what you do now?
Yeah, oddly enough, coaching has been around for a long time, and I did grow up in the Oprah era. My mother watched Oprah all the time, and then also Ian Levinson. I don't know if you all are familiar with her. She's on OWN, and she runs a show called Ian Le Fix My Life. And so I saw coaching from like somewhat of a commercial end, and oddly enough, though those folks did play a role in where I am today, I didn't really resonate with what I thought coaching was. Like I thought that your life had to be in complete shambles to need a coach, right? I mean, I guess part of it is, it's structured that way because they need a good show for TV. But for me, that wasn't really my journey. My life, I can't say it was in complete shambles. I just wasn't living up to my highest potential. I knew that there was something more for me. And I didn't really find any coaches that were having that conversation. So I think over time, I had to kind of find my own way and really use travel to inspire me and find other ways of kind of keeping me grounded and connected to what I feel like I'm meant to bring to this world. So there was a big mix, but I think I'm still kind of trying to find where there are other models, especially women who look like me, who are having the conversation around, helping high achievers really find that high level of fulfillment and experience their next level of success in a way that is different and new for them.
That's great. So you talk about travel. So where did you travel being an integral part of this? And of course, we're all travel starved right now. So, so tell us a little bit about the travel and where did you travel to, and what was
Yes.
it about that place that inspired you?
Oh my goodness, that is a story in itself. So, number one, when I decided to quote unquote quit and like walk away from, the hustle and bustle of New York, it was one of the scariest decisions of my life. But I knew deep down that I had to figure this out. And so, luckily, my husband had a flexible job, and I called him on the day that I handed him my resignation letter. And I said, "Will you travel the world with me?" And he said, "If we can find Wi-Fi, sure." So we got on the road immediately. We went to Florida, we went to Atlanta, South Carolina, basically the whole US, Hawaii. We went up to Montreal, we went to Mexico, we traveled through the Caribbean islands, we did Barcelona, London. And the story for me really comes together when I landed in France. And this was so unexpected for me. One afternoon, I found myself in a cafe in France. And here I was thinking that I was so evolved. I was like, okay, I broke out of the 9 to 5. I broke out of the traditional world. Here I am living this other life. And at the restaurant, when the waitress is serving me, I must have been giving off a very busy vibe. And she was right. When she was pouring the coffee and serving the baguettes, I felt like everything she was doing was in slow motion. She was just putting everything on the table so slow. And in my mind, I just kept thinking like, oh my goodness, hurry up. We have places to go and people to see. And in the moment that I had that thought, for whatever reason, her and I locked eyes. And I almost felt like she could see into my soul. She could see that I was frustrated and I was embarrassed because I thought I was hiding it well. And I heard her spirit say to me, and she didn't say this in English because she didn't speak English and I didn't speak French, but she said, "Vous avez le temps" in French. That's what I heard her say, which means you have time. And I didn't expect to get that lesson in Paris. But when I heard that from her, I looked around, and for the first time in the entire journey that I had of going through America, through the Caribbean islands, through Canada, and through the UK, and landing in France, for the first time I looked around, and it was in the middle of the day, and no one was rushing anywhere. And in that moment, I realized that there was a bigger shift that I was missing, that the shift wasn't necessarily about the structure of where you're working and what you're doing and if you're overwhelmed in your job or any of that, but the structure, but the issue was in who I was being. And I decided to learn more about French culture during my time in France. And I learned that actually what is most important in that culture is who you are as opposed to what you do. And in fact, talking about what you do is considered rude. And so here I was carrying all my achievements with me, so proud. These were the things that made me who I am. And in essence, that meant nothing. And that lesson was a huge lesson for me, and one that I started sharing online. And, like any millennial, I started taking my iPhone and posting on social media, really talking to high achieving women and saying, what if you gave yourself a chance to dream? What if you gave yourself a chance to live life for you, and not because it was going to impress someone else, or because you wanted to reach the top, or because of whatever other validation that we think society will give us? What if you worked on you and how you show up, and you became someone that you're, essentially proud to be, regardless of any achievements that you've had? And that message started to stick. And that was when She Heals the World was really founded. I started doing life design sessions with women who really wanted to just kind of take a look at their life on paper and say, okay, I've been taught, I became a doctor, and it's not just doctors and lawyers, it's people from all industries, but I became a X because I knew it was going to impress my dad, or because it would give him a bragging point. What would it look like if I started living life for me? And that was, like I said, 7 years ago, and here we are today. So I continue to go back to France every year, except for during 2020. It's been the only year I haven't gone. I am so excited to go back, and I'm so thankful that I had that aha moment while I was there, because it really helped me define everything that I stand for today.
That's wonderful. And we obviously both have France in common, because actually I lived in France for a couple of years. I actually lived down in the south, in the Côte d'Azur.
Love it.
So, and I totally agree with you. There's something about the French way that they're just like, and other Europe, obviously being a European, I've done a lot of travel in Europe, but there's something specific about the French way, and they're very, the way that they live very deliberately, to their pleasure, and that pleasure feeds them. And then when that pleasure feeds them, then they can just be a whole different person, as opposed to the doing. So I totally understand what you talk about there. So what really brings you joy in the work that you do now with these women?
So much. I think, because this is such an intimate space, kind of, where you're really like heart to heart with so many people, the most important thing for me is to see a woman see herself differently, to see her own value, not because it's been earned, or because she was a top achiever in X, Y, and Z, or she hit her first 7-figure year, but to see her own value in spite of all of that. And I love when women have the courage actually to reinvent themselves, which I think is one of the hardest things that you can do. When you've been working 30, 40 years in a business, in an industry, and you realize that this is no longer fueling me, to have the courage to begin again is so scary, but it is so inspirational. And so I live for those moments. I live when those light bulbs come on. I live when those women step into their power, and they really just kind of take life by the horns and give themselves permission to dream. That, I think, that's what keeps me going every day.
I love that. And it's so true, because when we get so stuck in what we're doing, and it drags us down, and then we just need to take the step, and just do, and it might just be something small, or it might be something really big, but it's just like having that courage within ourselves to really make those changes, and to believe in ourselves. And of course, it always helps if we've got a partner or a family or whoever by our side that really believes in us as well.
Fear in itself can be crippling, and we just celebrated Martin Luther King Day. And what was so powerful about one of his quotes is that you don't have to see the whole staircase, you just need to take the next step. And that's one of those like Post-it note things that I want to just like plaster all over my home, because essentially, if you don't commit to taking that next step, fear will take you out every single time. It is so much easier to continue the status quo, to continue to do what you've always been doing. But changing it up and shaking it up is really where the courage comes in. So taking that first step, like you just mentioned, is so important.
Yeah, I remember reading a book years ago, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a great book. It's a great book. Highly recommended, people. So talking of feeling the fear
Yeah.
and struggles that come in our way, because sometimes we might choose a path and it's not necessarily clear sailing all the way, and I'm sure that you've had a few hurdles that have come up in your time, so maybe
Mm.
you can share some of those with us.
Yeah, of course. So I think the biggest hurdle, so we all, once we come up with a business and it's from our heart, we can live in that space for a long time, but at some point you have to grow. And at some point you have to actually market yourself and you have to make social media your friend. And I think one thing that I became a little bit, I guess, not really held back from, but it was something I had to overcome, was showing up as my authentic self all the time. When you come from the academic space and when you're in this, like in an industry, you're used to showing up like this. You're dressed, you have your hair done, you're ready to go, you're on. But what I notice is that the best way for my clients to truly hear my heart are those moments where I jump on right before bed and I have a night mask on and I have my journal in my hand and I'm just talking on something that inspired me that night that I felt like I needed to get out there. Or, waking up in the morning and doing yoga. I do yoga on my Instagram, in my Instagram story every other day to just share my practice. But it took me such a long time to get to a place where I felt like I could really just like show it all, just be who I am. And when I started that process, I thought, in fact, I would lose a lot of people. I thought I would lose all of the professional doctors and lawyers and people who were following me. But in fact, it helped them to kind of become drawn in a little bit deeper because they knew me and they felt like they could relate to me. So being my true authentic self 100% of the time, in my pajamas, with yoga pants on, shopping at the grocery store. Those are pieces that people typically in other industries don't see you professionally doing. But for a brand that is talking about changing the lives and hearts of other people want to see you all the time. They want to know you all the time. And so giving myself permission to fully show up as me in those spaces was a big hurdle, and one that is not easily gotten over, but it's something that I'm becoming a lot more comfortable and a lot more better with.
Yeah, it's interesting. I love the way you say make social media your friend, and for me, I'm in that place. I'm like, really, do I have to? But you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. This is the day and age that if you don't put it out there, then they're like, who?
Right. Right. Yeah, they want that. They may feel like you're also like hiding something. Like, what is she hiding? Why don't I see, what she does in the morning? What's her morning routine? And so it's fun.
It's true.
I've made it my friend now.
It's true. It's true. I like that. So you've achieved a lot. You've had great success. You've grown a huge business. What you're doing with She Heals the World, I think, is just phenomenal. So what piece of feedback has really impacted you most in your years of doing what you do?
What feedback? I'm going to kind of go back to what we were just talking about with vulnerability. You and I talked a little bit about Brene Brown earlier, and um, she has such important points about being vulnerable. And I feel like gone are the days where there is a guru, and where people are expecting you to have it all together and to be perfect. And so feedback that I've gotten from my clients and from my audience has really been to continue to share my flaws. So I had a health scare a few years ago. And because of it, I have this fleeting anxiety. Every once in a while, I'll have anxiety about something, and I have had to find ways to manage that so that I can continue to, show up every day and shine. And for a while, I never said anything about it. It was never something that I felt like I needed to share. But one day I shared it, and literally my social media feed completely blew up because people felt so relieved to know that like I wasn't perfect and that there was something that I was struggling with and I hadn't 100% conquered it, but that I was committed to working it through. And it also gave me a lot of comfort in knowing that, like, okay, this is a thing and this is something that I can talk about. And I don't have to have the answer for it. I can tell people that I'm still working through it, but it was a place where people could relate to me. So the feedback that I got was to stay soft. To stay soft and to stay vulnerable, and to not hold back those pieces that you feel like, oh, if I share this, people are going to think I'm no longer an expert in X, Y, and Z, but to share it and to share your process in working through it. So that was really important feedback.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I can, relate to that. And again, Brené just says it and embodies it so well with her vulnerability. But there's that level of us within ourselves that if we can. I remember years ago, I was doing a course, and there was the teacher was kind of saying, if you can imagine that you're standing in front of a room, like totally naked, arms wide, and have that, not physically obviously, but having that vulnerability, then that brings you to a whole nother level of heart connection.
Yes.
And it, you take the ego, you can put the ego to the side for 5 minutes, and you just step into this place of like, okay, this is who I am.
Yes.
And there's no hiding from that. So I
Yes.
love that, staying soft and being vulnerable.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
So I know that that you especially work with women at the moment, and you work specifically with women business owners, which is great, which is why you're here, because of course NAWBO is all about supporting women business owners, and so are you. So we love that, because we're both doing the same thing and in a slightly different way. So but especially now, although hopefully there's going to be changes on the horizon, but these past few years it's been very challenging for women business owners to kind of move forward and get their businesses in a strong position.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of, how can a woman in a way coach herself through the challenges that she might face?
Yes, that's such a great question. And as a coach, I do have to say that you don't always need a coach, right? I think coaching is a phenomenal industry, and I think it is incredibly helpful if you have someone to support you as you're making changes and shifts in your life. But you can do this work on your own as well. And I have 4 questions that I typically will share with my clients and that I bring my clients through that might help. I am a big fan of journaling. So I use a process called Morning Pages by Julia Cameron. And that basically gets you into the swing of how to use your journal, what journaling is about. It allows you to really release the things that are in your mind and put it down on paper. And so I highly recommend, if you have any time, to get that resource if you're not familiar with journaling. If you are familiar with journaling, then there are 4 things that I typically will bring folks through in order to coach yourself through these challenges. And it really is about reconnecting yourself to inspiration. It is not a secret. 2020 was like the dream killer of the century. It completely stole our dreams. And a lot of the women that I work with today, they are not clinically depressed, but they are feeling like they are depressed from this year. And my response to them is always, you're not depressed, you're just uninspired. You are not depressed, you're just uninspired. So it's just really important to try to use some practices that will help reinfuse that inspiration back in you, because where you find inspiration is where you will be able to connect and reconnect to your desires. So the 4 questions that I bring folks through is, the first one is, where do you come from? And this is called narrative coaching. It really is focused on your autobiography. So if you haven't written your story, it's really important to take some time and write your story and look for trends. And what will happen when you take some time and write your story is that you will start to see that the beliefs that you have may not be because you believe them yourself, but it could be because your mom had a bad experience or your dad instilled this in you. And you just want to write your story from a perspective of looking for, is this still true? And that will help you to uncover your limiting beliefs. It will help you to really just get a good sense of how you got to where you are. So just like a contractor checks the foundation of a lot before he builds a building, you want to check the foundation of your life, evaluate your beliefs and assumptions before you design your future. Then the next part is, what do you stand for? So a lot of people are really concerned with like purpose, and they get caught up in this whole conversation about what is my life's purpose and what should I be doing with my life? But essentially, the most fruitful question you can ask is not necessarily what is my purpose, but what are my values? When I was burnt out as a leader and working in a position that I felt like wasn't really jiving with me well, it wasn't because there was something wrong with them or anything like that, but it was because it wasn't in alignment with my values. My values are autonomy, independence, health. Those are some things where if you're in a certain industry, that's whether you don't have time to really fuel your body the way that you need to give the world 100%, or if you don't really have autonomy and independence of your own decisions as entrepreneurs, that is probably all of our values. So, which is why we kind of shy away from the 9 to 5. But if those values are suppressed, you're going to feel that tension in your body. And so if you're in a business right now where you're like, I need something to change, even if you're, high achieving, making 6 and 7 figures in the business, but you're like, there's still something that's not right here. You want to go back to your values and you want to start to unpack, what are my values and where are those out of alignment, so that I can figure out how I can create something that is more in alignment with who I inherently am. And then what do you crave? So we all know that we're all craving something more. I would think, after this year, we're kind of looking for how am I going to up level my life after I've been through what I've been through? And so I use the wheel of balance, and this is a psychological tool, but every coaching industry has, their own different version of this. And it really breaks your life into these 5 categories: your relationship, your health, your financial goals, your money, your personal growth, and your environment. And so I would just go through those areas and ask yourself, how satisfied am I in these areas? How satisfied am I in my relationships? How satisfied am I with my money health right now? What about my personal growth? Am I doing anything to continue to grow myself, to intellectually challenge myself? Is my business providing the support that I need so that I feel like I am growing intellectually as a person? What does my environment look like? Environment, if you're not traveling and you're stuck in your home, is your home a mess? Do you have a dedicated workspace in your office? These are all things that affect how we feel. So when we have that broken out and we can just kind of look at that from the outside in, we can pretty quickly see what needs to be modified so that we can infuse more joy into our life. And then the last one is, where are you going? And that is, the dream board and the vision board kind of work that everybody has been so excited about going into a new year. But I challenge you to not just jump there, to go through the other 3 steps so that when you create your vision board, it really is reflective of where you truly want to go, and you don't create a vision that you're not in alignment with. So asking yourself questions like, how do I want to be remembered? What would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? Those are all of the pieces that can kind of help to guide you through creating a vision that you're excited about. And to make it stick, you can do something as simple as going on Pinterest and just starting to pin images that are inspiring for you. And that will kind of keep you excited about moving forward into something new in this new season. So, to answer your question, Liz, after I gave those tips, I think it is 100% possible for you to coach yourself through today's challenges, but you have to commit. You have to commit to doing the work. And once you do the work, you will see that you're someone different on the other side.
I love that, and I'm in the 100% agreement with all of those. But what really spoke to me was the piece about the values, because I think that working, knowing what your values are and living by your values just makes your life so much easier. Yes. Because when you don't know what's important to you, and then you get in crazy upsets with people because you end up and that's only because they just completely trashed one of your values. But if you didn't know it and you didn't say it, then yes. Guess what happens?
Yes.
So I have my values pinned right up on my board, right up there in front of me. So wow. I'm very aware of what my values are, and I try and live by them. And I know that when I'm unhappy, it's because my values have just they're not being fulfilled in one way or another. And it might be because of me, or it might be
Mm.
because of an outside influence or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's a good point. And I think people don't give the values conversation enough credibility. Like when people think of values, they think, okay, well, I have values. I'm honest. I have integrity. But it is so much deeper than that. Your values, like you said, there are things that you live by day in and day out. Health is a value. Acceptance is a value. If you have had some challenges in these last few years and it felt like, there's just not a spirit of tolerance everywhere, that if that's a value that's being suppressed of yours, and so you're going to feel uncomfortable. And so that conversation with ourselves about who are we, what do we stand for, what are our values, is really deep. It's much deeper than I think what a lot of people might initially think.
yeah, I totally agree. And again, echoing what you just said, is like, give yourself the time, do the
Mm,
work, and there'll be that. It's almost like there's almost like a peace within, because you've almost made peace with, you like, oh, I get it now. And
yes.
then you can embody it, and then you can live it. And then that's when the shift happens.
Yes. Yes.
So that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah. And one of my values is actually community, which is why I do the work that I do. Because
Yes.
for me, being on my own is like, I mean, okay, I can do things for myself, and
Mhm.
and that's fine. But you know what? I For me to thrive, I need a
Mm,
community.
mm,
And that for me is just, which is why I got involved with NAWBO, which is why I now have this role, and which is why I fight so hard to, I mean, it's been challenging this past few months, 9 months,
yes.
coming up to a year, but
Yeah.
actually really, stepping into that place of challenge, of community,
Mm,
and we can, and all of that can shift. So it's like,
yes.
you might have a value, but the universe might not come necessarily in alignment. It's like, how can we work through that? So I
Yeah.
think that's really important.
Yeah, it is so beneficial to have organizations like NAWBO, because if there is one takeaway that I had from my first startup, the school, was that it was incredibly lonely at the top. And even in my own business, and for everyone out there in your own businesses, I'm sure you can see that, like, it's not a good idea to necessarily be friends with your employees all the time. I mean, there's not exactly an equal relationship there. But if you don't do that, right, and if you draw those boundaries, which we must do as leaders sometimes, we will feel tremendously isolated. And the only way to get community is to find other people in business and to find other leaders and CEOs who are experiencing the same challenges that we are, and who also feel like they are very isolated. And so this community is 100% priceless, because it is the only way that you are going to have an opportunity to really check in and touch base authentically with other people who get you and who get what you're going through and who can really support you in getting to the next level. So I just really think that this is something that we all need to really elevate, lift up, tell more people about, because the number one challenge in leadership is the isolation. And the isolation does so much damage if you don't get into strong sisterhood with other women, or with other folks that know what you're going through.
I love that. And I might have to just take a little soundbite out of this recording for just that.
You
You
can pay me
nailed it.
later. No, just
You nailed it. You absolutely nailed it.
it's
Thank
true.
you.
It's true, though. It's
And,
true.
and ladies and gentlemen, that was not rehearsed. Oh, goodness me. So we talk about inspiration, because again, without inspiration, it's, I mean, I know for myself, when I'm not inspired, I'm kind of like, I feel very down, and there's nothing to lift me. So how do we stay inspired?
Ooh, that is such a good question. And it is one that I never thought I would have to put as much energy into as I have had to do in 2020. It was I knew from the beginning that travel inspired me, and to have that kind of pulled away really sent me through a very deep journey of figuring out what else. And so my YouTube travel videos only took me but so far. Yes, I was going on YouTube tours of new countries and new places to visit in the middle of the night very often, just when I needed a little boost of energy. But outside of that, I really did start to dig deep into the transformational work that we talk so much about. I started to rely more on my journaling. I started to rely more on my routines. I created a pleasure plan, which essentially is doing one thing every day that brings joy and pleasure to my life. If it's my favorite chocolate, having my favorite chocolate. If it's going for a walk, going for that long walk. I live on the shore, so going out to the ocean inspires me. So going down to the beach every week or every other day is important. So really finding those other things that you can control and that you can do to give yourself a little glimpse of joy every day can give you a lot of inspiration. Journaling and movement, I think if I had to pick my top two, those would be my top two. There's something about when you're in your body and you're moving and you're doing yoga or you're working out or you're dancing, the endorphins that you feel, they really can elevate your state of mind. And so thank God for a lot of fitness and wellness people during this time, because of them, they have truly kept me inspired. And I think those are things that everybody can do at home as
Yeah, I
well.
love that. And you're right, I think physical movement, for me, physical movement and being in nature, those are the two things
Mm,
that totally inspire me. Without nature,
yes.
I'm just, it doesn't work so well.
Yeah.
The stuff inside my head doesn't work so well.
Yeah, yeah. And we've had a tremendous opportunity to be in nature so much this season. I've driven over to the Hamptons about 3 times just to like go to the end of the world and stand up and look at the overlook and just see, all the water and everything. Like we have time, we have had time. And so this time period can also be your greatest gift if you allow it to be. Working from home, for those of you who have had to be in your businesses all the time, this gives us a lot of freedom. So sometimes, I think we have taken it for granted. I know I've spent the whole year complaining about it, but essentially it has led to some of my greatest breakthroughs. So nature, 100%, so much time to be in nature.
Yeah, exactly. So let's find out. I mean, apart from, so we found out a little bit. Let's do a bit of personal stuff about you now. So we found out that you like yoga, and that you
Yes.
like being in nature, and that you like traveling. But
Yes.
apart from those things, like, what do you do when you're not working?
I am a foodie, so I love to bake. It unfortunately has not been good for my waistline, but when I am not trying to watch my waist, I definitely bake. I do those online classes and the master class program. I will jump on there and take a bread baking class when I'm bored or want something more exciting to do. I also, yeah, I love walking. I love yoga. And I'll play like some challenging brain games on my phone every now and again. Lumosity. I know that sounds very boring and very corny, but I do like those too. So puzzles and those kinds of things. They're really fun. And I've had a chance to really explore them, during this time at home. So
That's great. That's great. So if you weren't doing what you're doing now, which by the way, don't stop doing it because you're doing a great job. But if, let's
thank you.
just say, if you weren't doing this, what would you do?
I know. I have to say that I am finally doing my life's work. And if I could do it all over again, if I could be in another industry, if I could do something different, I would still choose this. I think that I would coach whether I got paid $0 to do it or whether it was, an industry that no one was in anymore. This is what I was meant to do. So I know I'm cheating on the answer to this question, but there's nothing else I would
That's a
do.
cheat. That's
I'm
definitely a cheat.
sorry.
But you know what? It's not a bad thing, because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, if we're truly living our life's purpose, then number one, we're not working. And number two, we just like, we're in that place of joy. So why would
Yes.
we want to do anything else? So, all right,
Yes.
I'll let you off
You
that
let me
one.
go? You let me? Okay, thank you. I owe you dessert.
Oh, goodness me. So, okay, so what would you do? I mean, we know that what you're doing right now is what you want to do, but you know, we've all in our journey to get here, we've all kind of like done things that we were like, that might not have been a good idea, or you know, whatever. What would you do differently if you had your time over?
What would I do? Yeah. I try not to have regrets, but I will say this. I wish I gave myself permission to shine my light earlier than I did. I am, believe it or not, I'm an introvert. I think I shared this with you before. And so, although I had done all these things and was always in leadership, I was often still very quiet and was still holding myself back and playing small. And I had a colleague one day who I looked up to. She was almost like a mentor to me. And one day she just came up to me and she said, "You know what, Safiyah, you need to just let your light shine. Just let your light shine." And when she said it, I didn't really, I just, okay, I didn't think much of it. But as time went on, I realized like how powerful that was. Where would I be today, or how would I have lived a bigger or more impactful life if I just felt better about letting my light unapologetically shine? And I
Mm.
think I'm at that place now. I very rarely reserve what I have to say. I say what I have to say. I live my truth. I speak my truth. I'm authentic. But I wish I gave myself permission to do that earlier on, because I think I would have achieved the success that I have and have had, but I would have felt better about it. I would have felt more joyful in it years ago, as opposed to finally getting to a place where like I'm experiencing joyful success right now.
I love that. I love that. And yeah, and I hear you about the regret, like don't do the regrets because they so don't help.
Mm,
Coulda, shoulda, woulda,
yeah.
like push push it out the window. We don't want that stuff. But you're right. There's also that level of like when we give ourselves permission
Mm,
to be truly authentic, to really connect, to do what we love, to take the leap, to whatever it is, to
yeah.
to be in the relationship, to go, start your own business, whatever it is,
Yes.
then I just think that there's that level of when we shine,
Mm,
not only does it help us, but it helps everyone around us.
yes.
So it's
Yes.
actually it's a gift to others as well to be
Yes.
in that place.
Yes. Yes. 100% agree with that. You give other people permission to show up as their authentic self when you own who you are and when you shine as yourself. 100% agree. Love that.
Yeah. Well, see, we've got a lot in common, you and I.
A lot in common.
So I know that we're nearly coming to the top of the hour, but I just wanted to ask a couple of like crazy questions because I like
Okay.
to I like to throw a couple of crazy questions in at the end, just
Okay.
why not?
I'm
So, but
ready.
talking of crazy, what is the craziest thing you've ever done?
Oh, quit my job to travel to Paris.
Okay, apart from that, because we heard about that one. Come on,
Okay.
give us something else.
Give you something else. I mean, I'm pretty even killed here. Let's see. What is the craziest thing I have ever done?
Are you
Oh
an adventure
man, I'm
girl? Have
stumped
you
there. I'm
been
stumped.
You're stumped? All right, all right. Okay, I'll let you off that one.
Traveling. I mean, that was pretty crazy
It
traveling.
was it
Like
was
everybody
crazy.
looked at me like seriously, but that's my thing. That was my
So
thing.
so when you traveled on America, were you like in a camper van or did you do it like a hotel? How did
I did the hotel thing. I wasn't bold enough to get the RV and drive it. So I was jumping from airport to airport, place to place, thing to thing, just ready to experience it all. So I ate a lot of continental breakfast. and, But it was fun. I actually started posting so many hotel reviews that I had hotels starting to reach out to me to say, hey, can you stay here and share about your stay with, they thought I was an influencer. It was so much posting that I did. So by the way, if anybody wants to learn how to be an influencer, I've cracked the code with that. Yeah, it
That's
was a lot of
great.
hotels.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Like taking that kind of leap. I mean, I know we're kind of sitting here joking about it, but actually taking that kind of leap is really, it takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
So, you know, and a little bit of craziness.
Yeah, and a lot of craziness.
And I don't think the RV would have given you the same level of Wi-Fi that your
Right.
husband needed. So I totally get the hotel bit,
Yes.
and probably
Yes.
a little bit more comfortable too. But hey, I was just
Absolutely.
asking. All right. So, what's one thing you couldn't do without?
I'm going to say this, and I know you're going to like it because it's not a traditional answer. I'm going to say reality television. Did I
There
say
you
that on
go.
like Zoom
You
with a bunch of professional people? I watch reality TV, people. I'm sorry. So I can't do without it. I like it. I watch all those like bachelor shows and this and that. And it's a really bad addiction, but it's kept me busy.
Hey, there's no judgment here at all. I mean, listen, I've heard a lot of interesting answers. That's a good one too. Reality TV, but you're right, I was not expecting that. And we are
Don't tell
recording
anybody.
still.
That stays here in this circle.
Oh, goodness me. All right. So I kind of want to wrap up a little bit, but I'm sure that there are people, there are listeners, whether, you know, the people that are on the call now or afterwards that would love to get in contact with you. So where can they get hold of you? I mean, tell us your website, tell us how they can get hold of you.
Yeah,
Tell us
sure.
what you
So
can offer them.
yes, I'm at shehealstheworld.com. Instagram is She Heals the World. So you can find all of my social media from there as well. And if you're interested in what I'm talking about and you're ready to create your big life, you can jump on the newsletter as well at shehealstheworld.com and hear from me every week.
There you go. That's wonderful. All right, my dear. So, Dr. Safiyah, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being our guest, for sharing your joy, your inspiration, your passion, and everything else. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you so much for being with us. And we'll look forward to seeing you hopefully in person soon.